walk me through what you know about Sue L. Robinson's decision and how she came about it, please.
Yeah. So I think like the important things here to know. First of all, this wasn't the NFL making the decision, which I know you don't need clarification on, but I do feel like that's an important distinction to make here, that it was the arbitrator, Sue L. Robinson, making this decision. It wasn't based on 24 cases, the 24 lawsuits. It was based on 4. The NFL brought 5 cases. Sue L. Robinson threw one of those cases out because the league hadn't talked to the woman involved in that one. And then I think some of the language that we've seen come out is important. She used the word nonviolent. And, look, I'm not going to say whether she's right or wrong. I don't know. But, I think her using the word nonviolent is important. And then, my understanding is she was pretty critical of the NFL reacting to public perception and making decisions based on public perception. And so,
it's a business. It's a business.
No, I know. But that was part of it, was like that she was saying, like, this should be about the facts in the case, not how whatever decision we make is going to be perceived publicly. So, I know like the union and Watson's camp felt like the league didn't present that strong a case, as strong a case as, maybe we've seen out there in the public over the last, year and a half. And I guess the 6-game suspension would sort of back that up, which, of course it mirrors the decisions that the league made in the Zeke Elliott, Ben Roethlisberger cases, which are similar only in the sense that, obviously the accusations in those cases were really bad, but there weren't criminal charges.
So what happens now, Albert?
I think the league is probably taking the temperature of the public right now, to be honest with you. And I don't think that this is a simple decision for Roger Goodell. And we can look at like the different things he can do here. For those who don't know the process, and I'll run through it really quick, like the league can appeal and the union can appeal the decision. The union's already said they won't appeal Sue Robinson's decision. And then it's either going to be Roger or his designee hearing the case. And so, after you get through that, then obviously Roger or his designee would make the final decision. And I think what's interesting about this one, Rich, is like that you'd have, Roger here kind of, in a spot where, do I want my name on the decision? And if it sticks at 6 games, he could say, well, we think, like he should have gotten a year, but we do think Sue Robinson ran a fair process, so we're going to allow for that decision to stand. He could knock it up a couple of games, and I'm not sure Watson or the PA would fight that if he went up a couple of games. But then, does that really do anything? Now you've involved yourself in the process, and you don't look like you're being that tough on it. Or he could go to a year, and if he were to go to a year, well, then the NFL is going to be back in court with a player. And there's a decent chance then that Deshaun Watson would play in the opener because the union would seek a temporary restraining order and, try to get a stay on the suspension, which would put Deshaun Watson out there while the case was in court, which would obviously make it a pretty public thing for the NFL season. So, I don't know that there are great options here for Roger Goodell. And I think it's going to be a very, very difficult decision to make over the next, 48 to 72 hours, whether or not the league goes forward with this. And then if they do, whether or not Roger Goodell is the one to hear the case.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what are you hearing from Watson's camp, if anything, on this, Albert?
I think they are. I don't know if they're happy with the suspension, but I would say at this point they're seeking closure. Is probably the best way to put it. I think they feel like after this thing's been, before 2 grand juries and now a former U.S. District Court judge, like that's enough. And so I think that's part of the reasoning for, Watson's camp and the union getting together and putting the statement out that they did last night because, sure, they felt good about how the hearing went, but I think the other part of that was like that they felt like this had gone far enough. And so I actually think Watson's camp is at peace now with where this stands. And, I think the ball is very much in the NFL's court.
Do you think we will hear from him or they're going to wait till because he's just been so poor, to be very honest with you, at explaining himself. throughout this entire process. What might be the plan on that over the next couple of days? Albert, what do you think?
My guess, and the Browns have been. I was there, the other day, and I think the Browns have sort of had, Kevin Stefanski be the one that's out front explaining this over the first few days of camp and answering all the questions and all that different stuff. And obviously his teammates have to answer questions too, as how all this relates to football. My guess would be they'll probably wait to see what the NFL is going to do before putting him before the media, because there still obviously are some unanswered questions. But, I do know that like some people in the Browns organization feel like once there is closure on this, they'll be able to speak a little bit more freely on, how their process worked and trading for him and everything else. And so, I think you may hear a little bit more from the Browns here over the next couple of days. But my guess is, when you're talking about kind of the tone changing a little bit and then, maybe Watson himself becoming available, they may wait for the NFL's decision on whether or not they're going to appeal the decision by the arbitrator.